Well, women in Egypt marked the 100th anniversary of International Women's Day with a march in Cairo's Tahrir Square on Tuesday. Well, Kate Osterloh, a graduate student in Cairo, shared some great images of the event, billed as the 1 Million Woman March, but only a few hundred turned up. Osterloh says it was broken up by, quote, a mass of angry, shouting men. Well, the anti-feminist group tore up signs and flyers and chased women out of the square. Well, let's get more now on the march and on what the women demonstrators are pushing for in Egypt. Well, joining us now via Skype is Ethar El-Katatney, a graduate student in Cairo. Ethar, great to have you with us. You were hoping for 1 million women, only a few hundred, less than 1,000 turned up. That must have been disappointing.
Well, it was kind of expected, that especially when it comes to women and protests, you always know it kind of a little turns ugly. We've had before any protest that's been held in Egypt that's usually women related, the number of women who are willing to turn up because of the understanding that a lot of men do show up to shout us down. So it was disappointing, but I think actually what much more disappointing than the number who showed up was the reaction. Personally, maybe it was a little naive of us to think, but we thought that perhaps the ethos of Tahrir Square, the manners that we saw during Tahrir, when there was no harassment, when the treatment of women was very different, when women participated fully in the revolution, it wasn't, she's a female or she's a male, so she's not going to be here. No, women participated in everything. We were there during, the camel charges, during the Molotov cocktails, during, what I like very much, the organizers, what they were saying in their press release, they were saying, that women's bodies in these cultures, you're always used as an ideological battleground, as figuratively and literally, your body, or as a female, we're always used to argue whether it's a political debate, a social debate, but we use those same bodies to protect our country and to also be Egyptians, to be full Egyptians. So to see us take a step back,
because you mentioned that during the revolution, everybody took to the streets, millions of people took to the streets, and everyone was equal, men and women. So what has changed?
Well, the thing is, I don't know, maybe during the revolution there was a sense of we're all working together, but in our patriarchal society, men have privilege, and I would understand why losing that privilege would create some kind of, no, we don't want that. But today in particular, it was two demands that created all the fuss: the idea that a woman could be president, and the idea that we want, a civil constitution. And I think these were a lot of the slogans that were heard, not just go home, forget about it, stay at home, and extremely very aggressive discussion from who call themselves religious figures, that what you're doing is a wrong timing, you're using Tahrir Square, which you shouldn't be, you should find a conference hall and say your demands. That they actually used this same slogans that were used in Tahrir, the people want the downfall of the regime or the president, only they switched it to a very degrading term for women. The woman's voice is wrong, you should go home. They tore up the flyers, and then actually it turned into sexual harassment, mass groping. And for a second there, it actually turned a little violent. Actually, two soldiers, they fired shots into the air, and we kind of had to run, because you could see that it potentially could turn very violent, because, when you have 1,000 rowdy men and only 100 women, and then there was actually a small fight when I left, a small fight broke up between groups of men. So it was very, very disappointing.
That is really, really disturbing that it did turn so ugly, because at the end of the day, women are really only asking for an equal right to be part of the post-Hosni Mubarak government, to have women in Parliament. Considering the reaction that you have received, what does this mean moving forward?
Well, it just means that it's clear to everyone that we still have a very long way to go. Just because you've managed to change the political system doesn't mean you've actually managed to change a mentality. And it would be naive to think that it's going to change in a day and night, just because for a period of time, men were willing to set aside the prejudices or the way of dealing with women, how we deal with women, how we look at women, doesn't mean that it actually has changed 100%. It just shows that we still have a lot more work to do, that like as we were fighting for rights before January 25th, this has to continue even after. But also one thing I think which wasn't mentioned is that there were a lot of men supporting the actual demonstration. Only unfortunately they were drowned out in the voices of the rest. And also the idea that the people who showed up today were not necessarily all the people of Tahrir. There were a lot of people, you could tell they looked extremely thug-like, extremely, there's been a lot in Egypt in the past couple of weeks, a lot of people capitalizing the unrest and the chaos that's used by the fact that, there's no police, that we've infiltrated state security, to use the general chaos of the building to actually become rowdy, whether that's loot or to steal. So a lot of those people were there in many of
Ethar, as you say, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to jump in there. As you say, it is disturbing. We wish you and the women of Egypt all the best. We hope that you certainly can gain equal rights. It's Ethar El-Katatney in joining us there in Cairo. Thank you.